Our world is now at a lull or standstill of progress because we are engaged in a struggle with darkness that is of a type and magnitude never before conquered by man. Just as our fathers once were, we are now faced with a supreme enemy, and it is our efforts that will decide the fate of mankind. Our battle for freedom and justice will not be fought on hallowed ground, nor revered in history alongside battlefields such as Gaugamela, Waterloo, Gettysburg, Normandy. The realm of fronts for us to fight on is without borders or soil, and as such it presents the opportunity for every man, woman, and child to be a warrior of destiny. Our battles will be fought on the rugged cliffs of history, the windswept plains of freedom, and the high plateaus of wisdom. From these vantage points and natural defenses, we will be able to summon the vision that is necessary to connect all of our ancestors' experience and our recent past into a comprehensive tableau. The message contained in this tapestry of time is that all of our current suffering, confused anger, and hopelessness is the result of transgressions and treason committed by powerful men decades ago that has remained unchallenged and therefore continues to tyrannize and enslave us. The second repercussion or social tsunami of the assassination and cover-up is the Vietnam War. Weeks before his murder, JFK issued an NSA memorandum directing American forces to begin withdrawing in order to cease the dysfunctional policies that were being implemented in Vietnam. Shortly after Kennedy's assassination, and before the eternal flame was even lit on his grave, LBJ issued his own NSA memorandum, reversing this direction and authorizing the escalation of our military involvement in Vietnam. That bastard. This foray by the USA was going to work by utilizing massive troop buildup, aggressive policies, and a commitment to victory over communism. The rabid anti-communist mentality of Washington and illogical intelligence propaganda by the CIA sold the American public on the premise that war was necessary to prevent a domino effect of communist victories and complete takeover of Southeast Asia. The unnecessary loss of young lives sacrificed for political and economic gain ripped apart the fabric of LBJ's great society. The pain and casualties of this war continue to this day. We're still burying heroes from the Vietnam War. As great of a toll as the Vietnam War took mortally, it has exacted an even higher mortgage on our nation's soul. America came away from that war emotionally scarred, mentally traumatized, and disillusioned as to the true nature and purpose of battle. The spiritual principles of conflict that guarantee victory and enforce combat morality had been forsaken and replaced with a belief in the invincibility of American modern weaponry and the United States' global power. Chest-thumping, approval-seeking, power-mongering politicians decided to unleash the dogs of war and create an inferno of hell against a country that had no military industry, no navy, and no air force, because they decided that Vietnam was a threat to our way of life. American leaders, military brass, and career bureaucrats have since concluded that a war could now not just be fought to defend our shores and protect our citizens, but that political polls and corporate profits could now be bolstered and improved with the select and correct deployment of the mightiest armed force in the world. As of today, my generation has fought in Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, Somalia, Bosnia, Kuwait, Afghanistan, Iraq, and now Syria, for a total of over 40 years. It only took 4 years to win World War II. The Vietnam War has served as blueprint and battle hymn for ill-planned, unending warfare that has nothing to do with national defense, but everything to do with politics and profit. All subsequent conflicts have been modeled after and motivated by this absolute waste of American lives and dollars. As a young congressman, Kennedy toured Vietnam while the French forces were being cut up by the Vietnamese. He witnessed and was advised by the French to never, ever get engaged in a war with an enemy who was everywhere and yet nowhere. He vowed then and there to never put American soldiers or lives in a quagmire that they could not win. Kennedy stated in his inaugural address, "The torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans tempered by war." Kennedy understood war to be absolutely necessary for the defense of our country, but that it was not to be used as a domestic economic engine, that it would not work as a mechanism to impose our will overseas, and he considered it unpatriotic to use it as a political platform. Having been tempered by war and pained by the loss of a loved one, Kennedy was prudent and wise when evaluating pro-war or conflict advocating advice from the CIA. No president since has had this battlefield birth of character or the moral strength to resist the temptations of power and resist the sirens of glory sung by that mistress of evil, war. As ordinary citizens with normal routines and mundane lives, we have been granted the miraculous opportunity to fulfill the responsibility that comes with freedom. Submission to tyrants, terrorists, and traitors extinguishes the flame of hope and light of truth that was fought for and handed to us by our fathers. We can do no less than to follow and be inspired by the example set by the passengers of Flight 81. When they were given the truth about the reality of their tragic situation, they rebelled against their tormentors and chose to sacrifice themselves for their fellow man so that they could spend their last breath as free men and women. The reality of the condition of our country and society dictates that we demand the truth so that we too can make courageous choices also. Join the Free Hand for Truth party and stand up and fight for your freedom.